Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Anita Lucchese, and I serve as Executive Director of Sovereign Bodies Institute, a nonprofit research center focused on gender and sexual violence against Indigenous peoples and the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. I'm honored to be joined today by relatives of missing and murdered Indigenous people of Southeast Montana. Today, we have relatives of Leon Cochran, Selena Not Afraid, Preston Bell, and Tristan Gray, and Frida Knows His Gun. I'm joining us from our billings office here. I apologize, today I'm joining from my phone because we don't have Wi-Fi set up in our office yet. So bear with me for the kind of moving screen as I'm speaking on my phone. And as the participants of our webinar speak today, I'll have my camera off just so that we can focus on hearing from them and watching them speak, and then I'll pop back in as I continue to moderate the discussion today. We have kind of a set of general questions that each of our speakers are going to address in sharing whatever they're comfortable with in their stories and their perspectives. But we also want to invite the audience, those of you who are tuning in over Facebook, if you have questions that you'd like to ask the speakers, please comment on the video and we'll get to those at the end of our discussion today. Also, I would really encourage folks who are listening to also comment with messages of support for the folks who are sharing today. There just aren't words to fully describe all of the emotions and the pain and the frustration and the confusion and the grief that comes from going through this kind of loss. And the folks who are speaking today are being really courageous and strong in sharing what they've gone through and what their perspective is. So please do give them some good support in the comments. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to invite all of our speakers to turn their cameras on if they haven't already. And we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, I just want to invite everybody to introduce themselves and share a little bit about, yourself, your family story, your loved one's story, whatever you're comfortable sharing, and just kind of helping our listeners get to know you and what you're going to be talking about today. So Aldean, maybe we'll start with you.
Okay. My name is Aldean. Good luck. And I'm here today to tell Frida's story. Frida would be my little sister, and sorry, I'm just getting emotional here. What hurts the most is that she's not here to watch her children grow. And it's frustrating that we haven't heard from the investigator. I feel like that we're at a dead end sometimes. But, Frida was a person who was full of energy. And sometimes I see that in her children, and how two of them are in high school, and how her daughter is just growing into a young, beautiful lady, and next year her son's going to be a senior, and so sometimes I wonder, is it because that she has gone missing in another state? Is that why it's so hard for the investigators, or, you know, what is it? I have all these questions, but haven't heard anything. And so if, you know, if I could just know where she's at. Sometimes I feel like she's out there somewhere. And there's days where, you know, I'll talk to her like she's listening to me. And even my aunt has said that she knows that she's out there somewhere, she's alive, and that she has hope for her to come home and be with her children. And that's what I have right now to share about Frida.
Thank you, Aldean. Chuckee, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Leandra. Everybody calls me Chuckee. I'm here today to talk about my brother Leon, Taz Cochran. He was killed April 23rd of this year. Sorry, he was driving so far I know of three of his friends to the gas station, from what I heard, to get alcohol or something. I'm not exactly sure what they were exactly doing, but they left the gas station and he just turned straight on the road to go, like, he was heading back towards Billings, and he was shot in the back of the head while he was driving. And the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office that's investigating it, or did investigate it, are trying to say that he committed suicide. And everything doesn't add up for his death, nothing. And I'm just trying to get his story out there and let people know how loved my brother is and how much we miss him, and how unfair it is that Yellowstone County and everybody, like Billings, is really horrible about just sweeping people under the rug and just no justice for them. Today's actually his baby's birthday, so it makes me a little bit more emotional because he's not here to spend it with her. And like, it was really hard because they called us to go to Billings. They said, you know, they said they had a body and that there was an ID of my brother's in the pocket of this person, but they couldn't ID him. So I was thinking, you know, it was horrible that that there was, you know, like, we were gonna have to have closed casket, whatever, and they never let us actually officially identify my brother. They called us to go to Billings. I was there for 2 days, and they kept saying, you know, we can't do it yet. Just after the autopsy, you guys can see him. After this, you can see him. After that, you can see him. And they still wouldn't let us see. They kept saying because of COVID, because of this, because of that. So it was 5 days after my brother passed away, and we still never got to officially identify him. And my parents and everybody followed him back from Billings. And I watched them unload my brother in a body bag, and still not knowing if it was my brother. And then the funeral home, she told us, you know, she's like, they made it sound like it was really bad, so we're gonna have to see him, and we'll let you know if you guys could see him, if it's okay. And they let us. It was fine. When I saw him, he was completely fine. I don't know why they couldn't officially ID him off of his ID or anything, but when I walked in that room, the first thing I saw before I saw my brother's face was the bullet hole in his head. And it's really messing with me. So I just want everybody to just know his story and get justice for him. I mean, I know Yellowstone County, they just like, we're like, nope, it's suicide, shut it. But I'm hoping, you know, getting his story out there will somebody will feel something, and they'll talk, and they'll let out, you know, what happened to him, or something will come of it. And so that's why I'm here today, is just to let my brother's story be told.
Thank you, Chuckee. Cheryl, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name's Cheryl Horn. I'm here to just update and talk about my niece, Selena, not afraid. And also I have another niece, Tristan Gray. Both of them cases came out of Yellowstone County. Selena's eventually moved to Bighorn County. Tristan was hit and run July 18th in 2018 in Billings by the airport by the Big Lollipop, if everybody knows what that is. Well, her case was closed 3 days before, about a week before her 3-year anniversary. And the county attorney, Scott Tweedo, told us no charges would be filed against the boy who hit the man, Dakota Williams, who hit and run Tristan. Because in Montana, you can hit and run somebody and leave if you fear for your life. I don't know how this boy feared for his life when everybody ran from the scene. Nobody stayed. So I don't know who he was scared of, but that's the story he gave. After he left her there, he drove to his mom's work, which she's a CNA in Billings, Montana. His mom then made an anonymous 911 call that a body was up on the rims. A hit and run happened, however she worded it. She didn't give any names, you know. The way he was known is through Facebook. We took it onto Facebook and we found out his name through there, and we would force them to investigate, to the point where they would get mad at us for coming with evidence, coming with witnesses, coming with all of this. And at the end of the day, they're able to say he feared for his life, so he got away with no charges for Tristan Gray. So from there, we have filed a civil lawsuit on behalf of Tristan Gray against Dakota Williams and his parents who owned the vehicle. We'll see what happens in civil court. That's that's where we're at with her. My niece Selena went missing. It started in Yellowstone County and it moved over into Bighorn County. And this was in January 1st, 2020. We haven't had any updates since the Operation Lady Justice has taken the case into review. Word on the street was from the FBI is that they would have the review done in August. Well, it's now September, so I'm hoping a review comes out soon with some charges. So far in Selena's case, there was 8 adults and 1 minor. She was the minor. All the adults went home on New Year's Day. Selena's the only one who didn't go home. Whatever they did with her for 20 days, 19, 20 days, whatever it was, she was returned to us. And we were notified on January 20th that her body was back half a mile from where we spent 13 days looking. So Bighorn County immediately closed the case. Took them about 2 weeks after she was found to close the case. Hers was picked up by Operation Lady Justice, where once that happened, charges were filed in Yellowstone County against Leandra Tobacco Pittman. And she was on New Year's Eve, Selena was driven to her and she was allowed to go for a cruise with Selena. And Selena was never brought home. So one charge of endangering the welfare of children has been filed against Leandra Tobacco Pittman in Yellowstone County. As for the rest of the 7, we're hoping that those charges come down with the federal investigation. I see a couple of the adults that were with her are incarcerated or wanted for different charges. If they'd get them off the street right off the bat, they wouldn't be wanted for robbery, stealing cars, beating people up. If they'd put them off the streets the minute that they didn't return Selena and they all went home and passed out, they still wouldn't be out being a menace to society. So that's what the update on Selena is. We're just waiting now for the federal charges to come down, which we're hoping, will be soon. We were told in August, and we're not going to give up. We're still going to keep being loud, keep putting Selena's story out there. and seek some kind of justice. You know, if it has to go to civil court, that's people's choice. You know, you might have to take that on as a family to go ahead and file that. It's $50, you know, in most places. File that fee, learn about how being a voice for yourself and your own advocate in court. We got to learn it. I don't know how to do it, but that's what's coming up for us. So just learning what I can off the internet to the next step to try to get some kind of justice for Tristan, which is, you know, us face to face with the guy who hit and killed her and left her. I want to face him in jail. You know, he's admitted it to us. He's admitted he hit her, but he's still free. So just here still encouraging everybody to tell your family story. Reach out to, you know, sovereign bodies, to me, to anybody, and we can get you resources. We can help you. Sometimes, you know, all you need is somebody in the same boat as you to encourage you and make you a little bit stronger. So that's why we do this. We just keep sharing our stories and encouraging everybody else to speak up and try to get justice for our loved ones. Thank you, Anita.
Thanks, Cheryl, and thanks for all you do, all that you do, and being a voice for so many of the families and connecting families with SBI. Just, you know, because Cheryl mentioned reaching out to SBI, I just want to remind anybody who's listening in, who is a family member of a Native person who's missing or murdered, we do have support services available, and those kind of range based on what families need, but can include teletherapy with Indigenous therapists, emergency financial assistance, you know, with things like headstones or funerals or vigils or searches, but also day-to-day life expenses, especially for families who are raising kids of someone who's missing or murdered. There's an impact of that over time. So, you know, even things like school supplies and groceries we're here for, and also just emotional support, being an advocate with law enforcement, helping families get connected to media to raise awareness. We really try to meet families' needs where they're at, and do the best we can. So if that's something of interest to anybody who's listening in, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll share in the comments of the video our contact information so you know how to get in touch. That actually brings me to one of the questions that I have for all three of our speakers today, which is, you know, I think there's a lot of people that are, excuse me, really passionate about this issue and really passionate about, you know, wanting, like, it really hits deep in their heart and they want to do something. And so the question that I have for you all is, what are the best ways for our own people or the public at large? What are the best ways to support families as they navigate, you know, these losses and having to step up to be advocates for their loved ones?
I guess I could speak just basically from this has turned me into like a grassroots, you know, advocate for everybody. But it all comes down to our communities. It all comes down to our leaders, and it all comes down to acknowledging what's going on and being there for the families. On the reservation, we have a FBI representative. He's usually called the criminal investigator. When he investigates on the reservation, he then reports to the FBI off the reservation. In my experience, that has not always been the truth, what's passed from the reservation onto the next level of FBI. So it comes down to our own community. We need to demand that people are in these jobs who are in there to represent us, not pile up these murder numbers. And this goes all the way up to talking to your tribal council, because in the end, they're the bosses on the reservations. I'm just talking on the reservation community level. You have a voice as a community member. We have hurting family members. You see them in a community. All they want is for their loved ones to be acknowledged and people to say, hey, what about them? Why aren't we doing anything? Why are our numbers climbing in Fort Belknap? Let's take a good hard look at it. Let's have a conversation about this, because right now we're on a grassroots level. We're being ignored. We hit walls, we hit barriers, and those goes with our local level. And we need help from the community members by being behind us, being a voice, coming to our rallies, writing letters, sharing our posts. Because if we can't change it in our community, it makes it harder to change it outside of our community. But we can make the changes in our community. We can demand these jobs be filled by people with empathy, people who want to put people in jail, people who are not scared, people who can't be scared of filing charges on their neighbor or their neighbor's kid. They have to be ready to say enough is enough in our reservation for it to make an impact. Because we can ask for help, we can rally, we can march, but at the end of the day, our leaders need to be behind us. And the way we do that is the community stands up and supports the missing and the murdered. Men, women, whatever it is, they need to demand there and say, why are they not investigated? Why are we passing killers in Albertsons and Quick Stop? We have to have these real conversations and have some action, because we've been talking long enough. We need action in our local levels.
Thank you, Cheryl. That was really powerful. Chuckee or Aldean, do either of you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think just being there, like checking on families, you know, like, because in my experience, like, it's kind of like after, not saying people don't care, but after we buried my brother, it's almost like people want us to just move on and get over it. And you know, like in my experience, my brother died in a very traumatic way, and I'm never gonna get over it. And like I want, my parents are having a really hard time, and it's, I have a lot of people reach out to me to check on them, and to me it's like, you guys reach out to them directly, check on them, see if they need help, see if they need something, because out of everybody, they're the ones that are hurting the most. And just being like, people being a support system, because it's very I don't even know how to explain it. It's very lonely. Like and just making sure that, carrying on, like not making them feel like they need to hurry up and just move on. And being there basically for everybody. That's all I got right now.
Those were powerful words from Cheryl, and that's so true. And then like family, because some of like, for instance, Frida has children, and I think it hit hard with the oldest, and so like those children, they need some, I guess, some type of help. I believe he's gone through counseling, but I feel like this is another part of counseling that needs to be dealt with, especially those that, those of the missing and murdered Indigenous people. And so I feel like that those that, like I said, the children need the help to understand what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And I think, all these points, as I'm listening, one thing that comes up for me is just, how do we even account for all of the different impacts that this violence has on a family and on a community? And it leads me to wonder, what justice really looks like, because there's bringing missing people home, there's holding perpetrators accountable, and having them go through the justice system and be held accountable that way. But there's also another piece to it, when they've left behind kids who are now living their lives without a parent and celebrating birthdays and going back to school and experiencing all of those milestones without the parent that they would have shared that with. Or even I think of young people like Selena, who had her whole life ahead of her, and would have made all sorts of contributions to her tribes and to her community, that we'll never get to see. And so my next question for all three of you is, bearing those bigger impacts in mind, for you as family members, what does justice look like for you?
For me, it's holding the people that are responsible for my brother's death accountable. It's, just because you didn't pull the trigger doesn't mean that you're innocent. If you're not speaking, then you're just as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger, whether you're scared or not. It's, because when they're not taking those people off the streets, it's leaving them there to continue to kill other people and continue to basically live a life of crime and not try to be a better person. So they need to be literally taken off the street, because they're just going to continue to hurt families and put people in the position my family's in. And to make sure, that the family isn't going unanswered and that they feel heard, because in my instance, they literally didn't want to hear anything that we had to say with my brother's case. And making sure that the family has at least some kind of closure, versus just being like, here you go, here's your loved one, they committed suicide. Because I know the names of the people that were with my brother, and they're on, they're living their lives, and my brother will never get to live his life. He'll never get to be there with his children, and they're having an extremely hard time. And I just want, I want justice. For me is making sure that the people that are responsible are held accountable, and that even the detective and the lieutenant and everybody that did my brother's case are held accountable for their actions in this situation also, because they were negligent in their investigation.
I guess for justice, how I see that is that, everyone that has gone missing or murdered all deserve justice. And they all deserve justice. And so I want to say that, Frida's children deserve an answer. They deserve an answer. They deserve that. They deserve, more from the investigating party. Why did it come to a dead end when, all the information was handed over? And surely that there had to been some type of lead. Why was there a dead end? So more from the investigating party. So that's what I have. Thank you.
I guess, when Leandra Tobacco Pittman was charged last December 2020 with a misdemeanor, that was a big relief, even if it was just a misdemeanor, because there's so many cases, even her sisters, where they don't even charge them with a misdemeanor. There needs to be more laws about who's with them when they die, because it's so easy for the investigators and everybody else just to, believe their stories, you know. But justice for me is our families continuing to fight, continuing to say their names, because if we stop, that's no justice. The killers, the murderers, the kidnappers, they'll just continue like everybody else mentioned in here. I don't see anybody scared enough to turn their life around in any of these cases, because if you go to these families, they know who killed their family members. They know who did it. We know their names. Why are they still free? So justice for me is to continuing to fight, continuing to fight for change in laws on the local level, on the tribal level, on the state and the federal level. That's might be the only justice some of them ever get. So continuing to fight and help each other, and continue for killers and murderers and kidnappers to see and hear the story over and over, you know, that might be our only justice, is reminding everybody, hey, you're now dating a killer. Hey, your daughter's dating a killer. That might be the only justice we ever get, is to warn somebody else, is that you're with a killer, get away, you know, and continue to fight, because if we stop, that's a severe injustice. So we need to start working on our tribal levels. Why aren't these people in jail for 365 days? Why aren't they? You know, if they're saying they don't have enough evidence for these big federal charges, throw them in jail on some tribal laws. 365 days, put them on a big long probation. Throw them in jail each time they break that probation. 365 days. That's how you get killers, murderers, rapists, sex traffickers. That's how you get them off the street, because they can't stay on probation. They'll continue to mess up. So then that's how you keep them in jail. There's ways to get justice. We just have to go after them. And that's why it's crucial, like our conversation earlier about our community members helping us, because it can be changed. It's, you know, we can point our finger all day long, but the bottom line in most of our cases, they start on a reservation, and they start with our local criminal investigator who is not doing his job. So justice comes in many forms. You know, I'm hoping to get justice for Tristan Gray through civil court. That might be the only justice I get for her, but I'll always speak her name and her killer's name. So justice comes in many forms, you know. We just have to recognize it and sometimes accept it, that this might be the only justice we're getting. But don't ever stop saying the story, and don't ever stop saying the people they were last with, because they know what happened.
Thank you, all three of you. Those were some really powerful comments. And I think it's easy to feel hopeless about this crisis and about this violence, because it can feel kind of never ending and paralyzing. And I really appreciate, Cheryl, what you shared about, you know, we do have a lot of power, whether it's things like exercising our sovereignty in tribal courts, or even, you know, outside of tribal jurisdiction. Sheriffs and coroners are elected positions. So it's time that we have sheriffs and coroners who actually represent the interests of public safety, and actually represent the needs and priorities of the communities that they serve. Like, you know, there's so many, like Chuckee had shared, Yellowstone County. I think we all have heard stories about Yellowstone County and Billings PD, and how many countless injustices have occurred at their hands, whether it's neglecting a case or sometimes even perpetrating violence. And we see that in other jurisdictions too. This webinar is a part of a series of events as part of the Justice for Kaysera campaign. And for those who maybe aren't aware, Kaysera's brother was beat up by Bighorn County Sheriff at Crow Fair shortly before Kaysera's disappearance and death. And it's long been suspected that that was maybe part of the circumstances for what happened to her, and at the very least, the neglect of her case. So it's, while that can be enraging and frustrating and hurtful and paralyzing, it also gives me hope, because sheriffs are an elected position, coroners are an elected position, and we as the people do have an opportunity to elect better quality candidates who are really going to address this crisis head on. I kind of in that vein, one of my last questions for you all is, today we've heard stories about 4 missing and murdered Indigenous people in this region of Montana, and we know that there's over 100 other cases throughout the region. Last week, we heard from Allison Highwolf's family. As I mentioned, this webinar is part of a campaign for justice for Kaysera. We know that there's a shockingly or disturbingly high number of cases in this region, most of which have no answers or no justice. And so I wanted to ask each of you, what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that this violence is occurring at such a high rate in this region? And what, aside from, really aggressively pursuing justice through the justice system, which absolutely needs to be done, what are some things that we as communities can work to maybe prevent some of this violence?
Hi. One thing I'd like to see in each community started now that, once COVID lifts, or it's hard to get people involved with Zoom and all that, but we need to start teaching our children simple safety issues, as far as recognizing cars that license plates that aren't from the state or aren't even from their area, how to, discuss or be loud if you're being scared in a situation, how to find the adult. It all has to trickle down to the children. It all starts at home, teaching them how to be safe and teaching them the dangers out there. And one of the dangers is somebody you think your friend may not be your friend. They might leave you behind and it might be cold, so we need to really do some safety training, some safety tips to our children, focus in the community and teach them how to be safe. We can't, we can't change the past, but we can teach some preventative measures. One thing I'd like to bring to my community is the women. I'd like to bring them a self-defense course, but the self-defense course that needs to come to my community needs to be put on by women that my community members feel comfortable with. It's just where we're at right now. Most women that I've talked to, asking them, what can I do for the community? And they say, well, we do need self-defense, but we need to do it with women and where we feel comfortable doing all the stuff that comes with it. If you're not comfortable in a situation, it's just not worth the time and the effort. So we need to go into the communities and find out what they will be comfortable with and get these trainings to these kids and the adults. We need to provide resources to put cameras in places for safety, just step up the safety however we can. It's so easy to put cameras up all over a reservation, but I've yet to see one that has done it. I've asked my own community. We need these cameras up. Nobody wants to commit a crime if they're on camera. We just have to focus on our own communities and start there.
I agree with Cheryl there. And yeah, safety is, I think safety can be taught to the young women, and not only the young women, but also the young men, and put that awareness out there for these young people to know about safety and taking the safety precautions. And, you know, if they're in a group, to look out for one another and not leave anybody behind. Those types of things are important too. And to, you know, if they have a phone, you know, let someone know where they're going, what they're doing. And so I believe that's important, that safety is taught to these young people. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys said. You know, and like Cheryl said, somebody that you think is your friend may not be your friend. I know there's a lot of people that trust people that they really shouldn't be. I see it all the time. But yeah, just doing self-defense classes and showing the younger generation, you know, kind of what to look out for. And honestly, like getting the drug issue on the reservation under control. And because, you know, along with drugs and alcohol comes a lot of violence. And even off the reservation, it's really horrible. But yeah, you know, just making sure that people know how to be safe and how to get help if they need it.
Thanks, everyone. I've been going through some of the comments on the live feed, and it's awesome to see a lot of comments of support. Thank you, everyone, for sharing those. Please keep them coming. I wanted to ask everybody here, there's been a few comments from people on the thread who are also MMIW or MMIP family members. And so I wanted to invite each of you, if there's any kind of message that you would want to share out with other families who are listening, what would you like to say to them?
I would say to make sure to get your family member's name out there, to not be scared, because at first I was scared, you know, it's scary, the unknown, it's scary not knowing what's going to happen, but just to let people know what happened and to not let their story die out, no matter, you know, how you feel. I don't know how to explain it. It's a very lonely feeling not having your loved one around, but keeping their memory alive and helping them get justice as much as you can.
I guess I would just like to remind families that we all know our children, we know our loved ones. So no matter what the investigators say, whatever you believe is the story, their story, tell it. Don't, regardless of what you're told or what you think, or tell what you believe, because you'll be the only one telling their story. And like Leandra said, at first it's hard. You think you're alone. You think you have to go 100 miles per hour, otherwise they're going to forget them. But you're not alone. We're here. You just reach out, and we have all kinds of support, whether it be us at like other family members. There's times we just reach out to each other. It becomes a big, a network, a family, whatever you want to say. And no matter what level you're at, whether you just want to talk about it or whether you're ready to, start some action on it, it doesn't matter what level you're at. If you need help, if you want to talk, we're here, because we're what's left behind. We're the ones here. We're the ones who have to cope and encourage each other. And I just want to remind, you're stronger than you think, is what I want everybody to remember. And that your loved one is proud of you for speaking up. I would want somebody to speak up for me, and that's why I do it, because I love somebody enough to put myself out there. to put a target on my back. Whatever happens, whatever the scenario may be, and the whole movement or whatever, you have to just know you're not alone, that we're here. You can message us, you can call. Anybody on this call right now is already, committed to telling their family story. So, but we still need day-to-day encouragement. We still need to talk every day, just like Leandra said, check on everybody, check on somebody, whether it's 20 years ago they lost their daughter or their sister. To them, it was just yesterday. So if you remember somebody, go and tell their family members, go tell them a story about them, go tell them something good about them, try to fill them up with as much positive memories as you can, and if you're not ready to speak out and do anything else, that's fine too, but those left behind, we have to make sure your mental health is good. You have to check in and be okay. And if you're not, then it's okay to say, hey, can we talk? So that's kind of where this whole, my nieces took me, to this whole family network of this, being available anytime, any day kind of thing. And it's hard, but it makes you stronger as you go along, and you can speak louder and louder. So if you just need to talk, or if you're ready for action, we're here, we're all here.
All the stories are important, and keeping all the stories alive is important. And like both the ladies said, being there for one another and sharing those stories, and having the patience with, some of the family members. They may or may not be ready to talk or share their story, but don't be afraid. There's others out there. We thought we were alone, we felt alone, but there's others out there, and keeping the stories alive is important of each and every missing and murdered Indigenous person. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sharing. I'm not seeing any more questions on our Facebook thread, so I think we'll kind of end the questions here for now. Do any of our speakers have any kind of closing thoughts that they'd like to share? It's okay if you don't, because that was a pretty beautiful place to leave it too.
Yeah, I just want to say, for people who are dealing with a family member that's missing or been murdered, to take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, because I know for myself, losing my brother has been extremely hard on my mental health. I've ended up in the hospital, I'm on medication, and that's okay, because mental health is kind of, it's like kind of a stigma around it, and you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't, one day it's gonna catch up to you. So just make sure you take care of yourself and your mental health, and if you need help, get help. I see a therapist once a week, and it's helped me a lot to deal with everything. So
I just kind of like to leave on what Leandra said, reach out. Mental health, having all kinds of feelings from anger to anxiety to, they're all acceptable. They're all stages. And the stigma that people try to put on it, we have to break that stigma through this, everything we're going through, all these tragedies. You have to be mentally ready. You have to do self-care. You have to step away to take care of yourself, and then you can step back and help your tell the story, help others. But number one is mental health. take care of yourself, take care of your family first. And then if you have the time, then do what you can, but stay healthy and stay strong enough, step back, ask for help. And we're here. There's so many resources out there. And I get messages probably once a day from families, different situations. And now I have resources. Now I can tell you where to go. I can tell you who can help. And we have mental health professionals on board waiting to help. So it's okay to reach out, and it's okay. And every situation is different. So we're here, and so are a lot of other people.
As the ladies both mentioned, mental health. Yes, mental health is important. Taking care of yourself is important. So, reach out. Like Cheryl said, there are resources out there, and don't be afraid to ask. And so, take care of yourself. Say your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you all. I think that's a really beautiful place to end our conversation for today. Now, Eshame, thank you all for being so courageous and speaking about things that I know are really, really hard to talk about, and for being so encouraging and so loving to other families who are going through it, and to community members who may want to get involved. Like I said, I think these conversations can be really overwhelming and paralyzing sometimes, but I really appreciate all three of you for sharing so much encouragement and so much positivity and so much hope in this dialogue today. That's definitely what I'm walking away with. And as hard as it is to to dedicate our energy to something that's so painful, I don't want to say that I feel good, but like my heart feels full. That there's so many amazing people in this movement and in this work, especially the families who who can make our hearts full in that way, and can give us the energy to get up and do another day of this fight, because it is going to take all of us. So thank you again, everyone, for sharing, and for all you do. And each one of your families will be in our prayers, and we'll continue the fight ahead. In closing, I also want to remind our listeners that, again, this was part of the campaign for justice for Kaysera Stops Pretty Places, who was killed in Hardin a few years ago. And her family has been doing events each day to raise awareness and to continue to fight for justice for her. For anyone who is available, on September 11th, there's a memorial run for justice for Kaysera. If you're here in person, it will be taking place at Crow Agency. If you're not in Montana or in this area, you can join virtually and do the run from your home or your neighborhood. So everyone is invited to participate. Please do support the family. There's a Facebook page called Justice for Kaysera that has more information on the run and how to register. And thank you again for tuning in today and for all your support for all of the families. Be safe, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.